Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Ellen Knight. I'm a senior program analyst here at the Information Security Oversight Office, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here to the 2016 ISOO Open House. The intent of today's event is to provide an introduction to the many functions and responsibilities of ISOO and to provide opportunities for conversations between and among all of today's attendees and presenters. The order of events is as follows. After introductory remarks from the Archivist of the United States, David Ferriero, and after ISOO Acting Director William Cira discusses the mission, vision, and values of the office he leads, ISOO staff will go ahead and present overviews of all of our programs. After the networking break, we'll cover in greater detail developments in the Controlled Unclassified Information Program, the CUI program, which I know many of you are here to hear about, as well as topics in classification and declassification. Throughout the morning, we will have designated question and answer sessions after hearing from our presenters, so please hold your questions and comments until that time. The presentation materials used today, I'm told, will be made available after the event on our website at archives.gov/ISOO. Next, I have the honor of introducing David S. Ferriero, the 10th Archivist of the United States. Mr. Ferriero was confirmed as the Archivist on November 6, 2009, and since then has led the archives through a structural transformation designed to better position our agency to meet its obligations as the nation's record keeper and information manager. With English literature degrees from Northeastern University and a master's from the Simmons College of Library and Information Science, and having served as a Navy hospital corpsman during the Vietnam War, Mr. Ferriero came to the archives after leading the New York Public Libraries as the Andrew W. Mellon Director and leading the libraries of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Duke University. Please join me in welcoming David Ferriero.
Good morning, and welcome to my house. It's nice to have you here for our second annual Information Security Oversight Office Open House. Today's meeting is an opportunity for you, our stakeholders, to interact with ISOO staff and leadership and learn more of the ways we can assist your agency in fulfilling our joint mission, that being to protect and provide proper access to information that advances the national and public interest. A hallmark of a democratic society is the ability of its citizenry to question its leaders and have access to information about the activities of its government. It is more critical than ever, given today's digital information environment, that those entrusted with holding government secrets do so in an appropriate and transparent manner. ISOO serves as an honest broker in overseeing a system that protects the national security information, that safeguards the American government and its people. It works to ensure that the minimum information necessary to the interests of national security is classified and that information is declassified as soon as it no longer requires protection. This tenet of our democracy is one we promote at the National Declassification Center as well. We strive to meet our mission of releasing all we can, protecting what we must in our daily activities at the NDC. And I'm gratified to see many archives employees from the NDC here today to continue fostering the strong partnerships the NDC enjoys with ISOO and the agencies. I also wish to recognize ISOO's efforts to promote information sharing of national security information across government agencies with industry and the public. Many of you are aware of their leadership role in establishing the Controlled Unclassified Information Program. The goal of the CUI program is to standardize the way the executive branch handles unclassified information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls pursuant to and consistent with law, regulation, and government-wide policies. NARA is the designated executive agent to the implementation of the CUI program, and as such, I saw fit to assign the responsibilities of the CUI program implementation to the director of ISOO. The staff possesses the expertise and has a record of successfully engaging with the interagency to complete policy tasking at the presidential level. I'm confident that ISOO will continue to successfully implement the CUI program into the next administration, and I look forward to hearing about its progress later this morning. We at the National Archives strive to fulfill our mission and open government commitment to make access happen. Vital to the success of NARA's open government initiatives is the continued conversation we share with our internal and external stakeholders. This engagement is essential to help us improve our services and help us serve our democracy by providing access to high-value government records. In addition to taking advantage of this unique forum and expertise available to you while you're here, I also invite you to explore the Rotunda, to see the Charters of Freedom, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, a powerful experience for all Americans and particularly meaningful for workers in the federal service. Let me bring you up to speed on a couple of things. The director of ISOO is a career senior executive position, which means it is not a political appointee. The position must be filled through an open, competitive process. And as you know, John Fitzpatrick jumped ship in January of this year, and Bill Cira, a veteran of ISOO, was named acting director. We are looking for a leader with technical experience for a multifaceted organization that manages classified and controlled unclassified information through policy, training, and oversight. A government-wide vacancy announcement was opened from March 4th to the 28th, and a significant number of people applied. Initial interviews were conducted in May and June, and this is November. Final interviews were completed in July. Our final list of candidates was sent to the White House for approval, and we are expecting a response. I hope before the administration changes. So I want to publicly thank Bill for his leadership as acting director of ISOO this past year. This is not the first time Bill has served as acting director, and I'm grateful for his willingness to once again ensure ISOO continues its mission with the same efficiency and effectiveness displayed in its 30-plus years of existence. Bill announced that he will be retiring from federal service at the end of the calendar year after close to 40 years of service, 25 of those years serving in the U.S. Navy, and I just heard that he was actually qualified as a Lieutenant JG to be the OOD on a carrier. That's a big deal. Nothing compared to what you're doing now, right? And he retired with the rank of captain. I congratulate Bill on his many accomplishments and thank him for his dedication to the National Archives and to ISOO. Again, thank you for participating in today's program and for your continued support of ISOO and the National Archives. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Ferriero, for your remarks and for joining us this morning. We'll begin our morning briefings in just a moment. I would first like to introduce our speakers from session one. After remarks from our acting director, William Cira, we'll hear from senior program analysts Robert Skwirot and Kathleen Branch. Bob Skwirot serves as the project lead for the annual agency self-inspection reporting to ISOO, team lead for ISOO on-site reviews, and lead for ISOO staff support to the state, local, tribal, and private sector policy advisory committee. He has been a member of ISOO staff since 2001, prior to which he served as a researcher with the Nazi war crimes and Japanese imperial government records interagency working group, as a senior researcher with the Presidential Advisory Commission on Holocaust Assets in the United States, and as chief analyst for CIA records with the JFK Assassination Records Review Board. Kathy Branch serves as the project manager for the National Industrial Security Program Policy Advisory Committee, NISPAC, and other NISP-related activities. She also serves as a liaison and conducts oversight of executive branch agencies' implementation of the order. Formerly, Kathy was chief of the policy division of the Defense Security Service, DSS, where she managed a staff of NISP subject matter experts with responsibility to develop internal DSS industrial security policies and procedures. Prior to her DSS appointment in 2006, Kathy worked for Computer Sciences Corporation, serving for 7 years as a National Security Advisor to the Security Directorate in the USDI. And now on to our acting director. I now have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker from ISOO, our acting director, Bill Cira. We've already heard from the Archivist some of Bill's wonderful accomplishments. Bill joined ISOO in September 2003 and has been Associate Director for Classification Management since August 2008, serving as acting director this past year. In this capacity, he is responsible to the President for policy and oversight of the government-wide security classification system and the National Industrial Security Program. Of his many accomplishments, Bill played a significant role in the drafting of Executive Order 13526 and its implementing directive, and oversaw the first fundamental classification guidance review performed across executive branch departments and agencies. As acting director, he also facilitated the issuance of the federal regulation for the Controlled Unclassified Information Program, which established consistent practices and procedures for safeguarding, disseminating, controlling, and marking CUI across all agencies. And prior to his federal current career service, Bill was in the Navy for 25 years and retired with the rank of captain, and he holds a master's degree in public administration from the University of Oklahoma and a BA in history from Illinois State University. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Cira.
Thank you, Ellen. One important thing that the bio failed to mention is that I was born in Chicago. All right. Just think that some people had to wait 108 years. I only had to wait 62, so I guess I'm doing, it's not too bad when it's all things considered. Anyway, good morning to everyone, and thank you for coming. We're especially pleased to see such a great turnout. We appreciate your interest in what we have to say, and we also appreciate your commitment and support to the programs that we will be presenting on today. Throughout my time here at ISOO, I've always been impressed by the high level of support that you all express and devote to these policies that govern our programs. And I've always been impressed by your support of ISOO, cooperation with ISOO in the pursuit of its responsibilities. And I think it's because you all realize that we need to work together, and you believe in the spirit and intent of making the process better, and I think you're all to be commended upon that. You probably haven't heard that about a year ago, the government of Japan established an office that they modeled after ISOO. It was a pretty big deal for them because they had just passed a new law on classification and secrecy that didn't exist before, and it was a large issue over there in Japan with a lot of political and news media interest. And we had a flood of visitors from Japan for about 3 years, from the government, from the Diet, from the news media. It was just incredible. I was like, I never thought anything like this would ever happen. But in any case, about 2 months ago, I had the pleasure of have a face-to-face meeting with the director of Japan's ISOO. They call it the Information Security Oversight Division. Pretty close, right? I told you they modeled it. And they had a lot of questions. They've always had a lot of questions. And during this meeting, they had a lot of questions. But one question that he asked was, what do you do when an agency refuses to let you in or refuses to provide the information that you request? And so I knew there was, probably some background behind that question. This is they're obviously having a hard time getting things started. And all I could say was, there's a variety of things we could do, but, we really haven't needed to do it because we don't have that problem. You know, the agencies, you know, believe in what's going on, and they believe in the system, so they cooperate. And I could see that they were very impressed by that, and also, I think, quite a bit envious. So I thank you again for all of your support. I want to get on with the program here very quickly, but before I do that, I'm going to give you what I hope will be a very quick overview of ISOO and what it does. So, Executive Order 13526 gives ISOO the authority to oversee executive branch agency compliance with the Security Classification Program. And now, of course, EO 13556 gives us the authority to oversee the CUI program. We also have responsibilities with respect to the other executive orders listed on this slide. We're a component of the National Archives. The Archive serves as our parent agency, and we receive policy and program guidance from the National Security Council. Our mission is to promote proper access to information, to advance the national and public interest, and to lead efforts to standardize and assess the management of classified and controlled unclassified information through oversight, policy development, guidance, education, and reporting. Our vision is a government whose information is properly shared, protected, and managed to serve the national interest, and an informed American public that has trust in its government. Our values revolve around integrity, collective expertise, and leadership. The advancement of national security by ensuring the proper classification, safeguarding, sharing, and declassification information is also very important. And we want to uphold the public's confidence in open, effective government. Our goals are to promote the protection of classified and controlled unclassified information, promote access through declassification and decontrol, reduce classification and control activity to the minimum necessary, provide advice and guidance, and collect, analyze, and report on information about the status of agency programs. Executive Order 13526 gives us the unique authority to conduct on-site reviews of each agency's classification program. It also gives us the authority to require each agency to provide reports and data concerning any aspect of their program. When we conduct an on-site review at an agency, we primarily focus on their overall management, their classification procedures, their training programs, their internal inspection programs, how they handle security violations, and also how they protect their information systems that protect classified information. ISOO is organized into 3 directorates. The directorate that I lead is the Classification Management Directorate, and we provide ISOO's executive secretary support to the ISCAP and the PIDB. The ISCAP provides a venue for further review of declassification decisions by reviewing and ruling on mandatory declassification review appeals and classification challenges. They also rule on requests from agencies seeking permission to exempt information from automatic declassification at 25 years. The PIDB is a senior advisory committee established by Congress. It advises the President and the executive branch on efficient means for reviewing and declassifying materials. The Classification Management Directorate also conducts focused on-site reviews of agency declassification programs, and it produces the ISOO annual report to the President every fiscal year. Another of our directorates is called Operations and Industrial Security. The ops staff coordinates and runs our on-site review program and the self-inspection program, the government-wide self-inspection program. The director of ISOO is the chair of the NISP PAC, and I'll let you read that on the slide instead of me trying to read it to you, except what all that stands for. And the ops staff provides the admin support. The members of this committee represent major stakeholders in the government, and the industrial community is also represented. The committee serves as a forum for government and industry to come together to work on issues revolving around industry's involvement in classified information programs. Director of ISOO is also the chair of the State, Local, Tribal, and Private Sector Policy Advisory Committee. The ops staff supports this group as well. The committee brings federal agencies and the non-federal government agencies together to discuss policies and procedures for the sharing of classified information. And last but certainly not least, we have our CUI staff. And we know there's probably a particular interest in CUI this morning, so we gave that the largest time slot on the agenda. The CUI staff is developing a program that will regulate and oversee the many categories of protected unclassified information. They have recently succeeded in their efforts to get the White House staff and the agencies to agree on the publishing of a regulation that will implement the CUI program. This was done by consulting with the agencies during meetings of the CUI Council, which is also chaired by the director of ISOO and supported by the CUI staff. And it was a long process, kind of a hard process that I think went a total of 6 years altogether. And so they are congratulated to getting that job done. ISOO is also the approval authority for the establishment of CUI categories, and the CUI staff has created a registry of these categories that is available online for everyone in government and the public to see. That's everything that I wanted to cover this morning, so I can now turn the podium over to Bob Skwirot, who's going to cover self-inspections and on-site reviews. And I'll be back later because I'm pinch hitting for one of the other presenters who couldn't be here this morning.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see familiar faces and also some faces I haven't seen before. Today I'm going to be talking about a couple of our oversight areas, as Bill said, self-inspections and on-site reviews. And so, one is oversight that you do and that we want to see how you do it. And then the other is oversight that we do when we come out and do on-site review of your agency. So first of all, we're going to start with self-inspections. And it's probably something that you could probably tell me about right now because most of you have submitted your self-inspection reports for 2016. They were due November the 1st. I think maybe a quarter of the agencies, we haven't gotten them yet, so please get them to us. But I think probably some of you have a few words you want to say to me about self-inspections. And I hope they're good things because, we think that really self-inspections are important for you. Really the purpose is to help you manage your program. It lets you see how your program's working, what's working and what's not, and what are the strengths and weaknesses. So it's better for you to find problems than for them to show up in the Washington Post. We have detailed reporting. It came in effect under the current executive order, and you've been doing it since 2011. So this is the 6th year of that. So why do we have that? The primary reason really to add that to EO 13526 was to get you all to do self-inspections. So a decade ago, we were doing on-site reviews, and we were finding that a third of the agencies had no self-inspection programs. And then another third, they had self-inspection programs that really were having no effect. And so when the Obama administration came in, and as normally is the case, there's the expectation of a new executive order, staff who were doing on-site reviews, we pushed our leadership to try to get some additional reporting requirements in the executive order, because prior to this order, the only thing that was reported was the number of self-inspections you did. It really was a way to try to get all of you to utilize this very important tool to help you manage your program. Let's talk about some of the requirements. So the order really sets this up as this is the Senior Agency Officials Program. Because Senior Agency Official manages the classified program, and so this is a way to help him or her oversee and manage that broader program. And an important part of it is the review of your classified product. Again, it's the SAO's program. And what is required? So see, the directive goes into more details about what's required. It requires you to cover all of these things, and again, it's probably fresh in everybody's mind. So don't need to go through that list again, I think. So I do want to focus on the review of the documents, though, because it's a very important part. It's something that we find in our on-site reviews that needs attention, and so it's something that is really important part of your self-inspections. Regular reviews, all activities that generate classified, sample of varying types of classified information, proportionally sufficient for your agency, and personnel are knowledgeable. And correction of misclassification actions authorized by the SAO. So the directive tells you have to do certain things, but it gives you latitude as to how you do it, because all your agencies are different, right? So Tennessee Valley Authority is not going to do what the CIA does. It's not, it doesn't make sense. So you set up your self-inspection program as appropriate for your classified program. But it has to be at least annually. Coverage, again, your senior agency official determines that based on the needs of your program. He or she determines how it's documented internally, and then you need to report to us each year. So what should self-inspections accomplish? Well, they should help you manage your program. And identify strengths and weaknesses that can be corrected and that you can address. So what should be included in the annual report to ISOO? Well, it should be information that shows that you are accomplishing these things, so that the self-inspections are helping the SAO manage the program, that they're identifying strengths and weaknesses, and that you're taking steps to correct them. You're familiar with the form, I'm sure. The reason we have this form is to make it easy for you to report. So, the executive order and the directive lay out kind of the basics, and this gives you a means to put really short responses rather than crafting a coherent narrative to describe all of this. And so the various sections really are speaking to the various requirements of the order and the directive. So the first big part of it is description of the program, and really that's telling us what is unique about your program and how it helps you manage the broader classified program. There's a summary and assessment of findings. Again, these are all narrative responses. So you have flexibility to report what is unique about your program. And then we have focus questions. You're familiar with the kind of data-driven responses about kind of key elements of your program. And then the findings of your document reviews. And the last part, corrective actions, best practices, and explanatory comments. So, strengths and weaknesses that we've seen over the years in the self-inspection reports. I think it's fair to say that these reports have improved a lot over the 6 years that you've been submitting them to us, and we're pleased by that. Some reports now describe well-conceived and effectively implemented inspection programs. They report findings frankly, with careful analysis, and they outline sound steps to remedy deficiencies. And I think this speaks to the self-inspection programs in general. I think the situation we saw a decade ago when so few of the agencies had functioning self-inspection programs has improved. I think improved a lot. Not that everybody is there, but I think everybody has stepped forward and getting a better understanding of how to use this tool to help manage your broader program. There's still some reports that suggest that more work needs to be done. Some weaknesses, maybe lack of detail in some of the narrative responses. They don't really tell us enough about your program to help us know that you have an effective program in place, or they don't really say about much what you found. So if in your program summary and assessment elements, if you say everything is fine, it doesn't tell me about how well your program is working. Maybe everything is fine, but it doesn't really give us an understanding of what you're doing to manage your program. And that's really what the report is about. Now, I guess I cannot say anything about the new reports. We haven't had a chance to look at them. From 2015, I think our main concern was reports that indicate there was some area of deficiency in a program, and then they did not speak to the corrective actions that were taken to address those. And that's kind of squandering the work you've done. So if you find a problem, it's an opportunity to fix it. And so we're hopeful that this year we'll see improvement in that regard. Last on self-inspections, please, if you haven't sent in your reports, please get them to us as soon as possible. Next area is on-site reviews. Bill talked about our authority to conduct on-site reviews, comes from the executive order, and that is something that many oversight entities don't have, so that's a good thing for us. So we do probably about a dozen on-site reviews a year under our current schedule. And I think a number of you here have experienced an ISOO review within the past few years, so you know what we're about. But maybe some of you don't. So let me speak to the process. So we start off by, we internally identify the agencies we're going to visit, and then we reach out to the points of contact, such as yourselves, and let you know your agency's been selected and the proposed dates, and then the dates are subject to confirmation, and then we send a formal notification to your senior agency official. The ISOO team lead coordinates the review with the identified personnel at the agency, and provides additional details about what's going to be done. We asked for materials prior to the review to help facilitate the process and make it easier on-site. Now, these full program reviews, they take about a week on-site. We have an in-brief and an out-brief with the senior agency official. It's followed by a written report from the director of ISOO, and then that report asks for the agency, senior agency official, to respond within 90 days on steps that are being taken to correct any deficiencies that may have been identified. So that's the process. And we try to be thorough, but I think we're fair. So if you hear we're coming, please don't go hide under a rock and panic. We work with you guys. You know, we have an ongoing relationship. So these reviews are part of that process. How am I doing for time? I'm okay? Okay. So the coverage, Bill spoke a little bit about the coverage. This is reiterating that, and maybe there are a couple little pieces on there that he didn't include. And the methodology. So we look at your program documentation. We review classified documents, generally about 200 for these full reviews. We interview personnel who are responsible for the program, and we interview personnel who work with or generate classified information. And also we examine areas where classified information is stored and or processed. And so it does take coordination to do that. So you know, we work with you folks as we're planning, and through the review, we really depend on your help. So there are two types of on-site reviews. There are these full program reviews, which I pretty much have been describing thus far, and we do follow-up reviews. We started those in the follow-up reviews in 2016. Again, the full program reviews, reviewing your classified national security information program. They're broad reviews that cover all those program areas that we had listed there, and they take about a week. We review about 200 documents while we're there. The follow-up reviews, we generally conduct them 2 years after the initial review. And it's to validate and verify that the actions that your agency said it was going to take to correct deficiencies indeed have been done. And this review includes a sample of 50 documents. And typically this takes about 2 days. And similarly, coordination beforehand and documentation provided beforehand to facilitate the process. Okay. So the different program areas, the details of these areas, program management, we're looking at how your security program is organized, and we look at your policies that guide the program. We look at do you have the requirements for rating of personnel who have security responsibilities and who work with classified information, and we look at your support from senior management. In the classification management part, we look at your class guides, we look at appropriateness of classification challenges and of classification, and we look at your classification challenge process. In the area of training, we want to see what you're doing with regard to training. There are a number of different training requirements on the executive order, so we want to see you're doing all that. We look at the materials you use to do it. We look at how you track it. We consider the area of original classification and derivative classification if some folks haven't gotten their training, have waivers been issued to allow them to continue with their classification responsibilities. With regard to self-inspections, we look at your policy and procedures. Typically, this is a validation of your self-inspection report from the previous year. We look at your internal documentation of your self-inspection reports over the past couple of years. With regard to security violations, we're looking at your policies to identify, investigate, address security violations and infractions. We look at your records and we see how you track trends in these areas. Safeguarding, your policies and practices, your procedures, and we look at areas where you're storing and working with classified information. With regard to classified information systems, it's the agency's policies and implementation procedures as they relate to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information processed on automated systems used to collect, create, process, transmit, store, and disseminate classified information by or on behalf of the agency. Industrial security, your policies and implementation of the program for industrial security. And then the document review, 200 documents representative of your classification action by the offices that create them, by the types of documents and the levels of classification. So as well as you can get a representative sample within just 200 documents, that's what we're looking for. It's important that the documents are collected prior to the visit. It's almost impossible to try to dig them up on site. Years ago, we could do that because the documents were in safes, and we can pop open safes and pull out documents, but that's not the case anymore. So they got to be identified and available for us when we come. And sometimes the agency will set up a means for us to access them prior, and again, save us time on site. It might be a SharePoint site. We actually might have a couple folks come out to the agency prior to the actual engagement and just look at documents. Again, we try to do processes to make this less painful for all of us. It's a lot of work. We understand that, engaging with us for a week, but we think it's important, and we think it helps your programs. So before I finish this one, I'm going to talk about what do we consider an on-site review success. And there's really a couple things that we think about. For me, one has to do with our relationship with the agency. If I finish an on-site review and we have kind of built on and grown our relationship, then I consider it a success. And the other thing is, what kind of effect do we have at the agency? So, as much as I'd like to show up an agency and find, well, everything in the program is perfect, that's not likely. But if we leave there and we've had some effect, if after we're done, you all find a way to improve your program, then I can consider that a success. And also, if we help your program get more visibility in your agency, that's also a sign of success. So thank you for your attention. And I think there will be a time later where there will be questions. So if you wanted to ask me some questions, I will be available then. Thank you. And so let me bring on Kathy Branch, who can tell you anything about the NISP that you can imagine. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Bob, and very informative, thank you. And I'm really pleased to be here because when this took place last year, I was still at Defense Security Service, so exciting for me to be here at the Information Security Oversight Office. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the National Industrial Security Program, which we affectionately refer to as the NISP, and then tell you a little bit about what's new in the program. But before I start, I just wanted to get a feel, how many of you here work on industrial security in your agencies? Okay, well then there are a few of you, so for all of you, this is old stuff for you, so you can just sit back and say, oh, I know all of this, but we'll let the rest of the folks in on our secrets in the NISP, give them a clue about what we do. The NISP was established by Executive Order 12829 in 1992. Executive Order seems to be a recurring theme here, and we have our Executive Order as well. And the idea was to establish, those are important words up there on that screen, a single, cohesive, integrated program to ensure the protection of classified information in the hands of industry. So this program is all about releasing classified information to industry and making sure we know that industry is protecting the information that we give to them. It's implemented through a directive, 32 CFR 2004. That's an important directive for all of you to know about because that's the directive that establishes both ISOO's responsibilities for the program and all of your responsibilities for the program. So if you're not familiar with it, it's easy to Google, and I recommend that you take a look at it. ISOO has the responsibility to implement and monitor the program. So when we implement the program, hey, we actually write that 32 CFR 2004. So that's one way we go about implementing the program. We work very closely with the agencies that release classified information to industry, and we also work very closely with industry that has the classified information. The policy direction is from the National Security Council, and we're very happy to have John Fitzpatrick at the National Security Council now because he's our inside look at that process, and we work closely with him as well. So a little bit more about the program. ISOO plays an important role, you play an important role, but there are 5 agencies that have a key role in the program. There are 5 cognizant security agencies under the NISP. Those 5 agencies are the agencies that oversee all of industry and how they protect classified information. Department of Defense is probably the largest and has always had a very big program. DOE and NRC are cognizant security agencies because they retain authority for nuclear matters. So they oversee those companies that are engaged in contracts or have access to classified information that pertains to nuclear matters. The DNI is a cognizant security agency because the DNI retains authority for intelligence information. DHS has authority for critical infrastructure and cybersecurity. So you can see how the program is divided among those 5 agencies. But most importantly, while ISOO implements and monitors, the Department of Defense is the executive agent. So what does the executive agent do? The executive agent issues the NISPOM, the National Industrial Security Program Operating Manual for contractors. How many of you here are familiar with the NISPOM? Probably more of you familiar with the NISPOM than with the implementing directive. The NISPOM actually tells contractors how to protect the classified information that they have, and the rest of us are all watching and looking at how they do that. And the Department of Defense also has agreements with agencies that are not one of the 5 listed there. So if you're an agency and you're not one of those 5, you have an agreement with the Department of Defense to oversee your contracts in industry. And I can pretty much guarantee that all of you do have an agreement with the Department of Defense. We've found some agencies that didn't realize that they had it, but they actually do. Now, a little bit more about how ISOO monitors the NISP. You've heard the National Industrial Security Program Policy Advisory Committee mentioned earlier. It is one way that ISOO interacts very closely with agencies and with industry. ISOO chairs the committee. There are 16 government members of the committee and 8 industry members of the committee. And it's not a random thing as to how those members of the committee came to be. The 16 government members represent those agencies that issue the preponderance of classified information to industry. So the 5 CSAs certainly are part of that 16, and other agencies like Justice and State, NASA, you can think about those that would have large industrial security programs. They represent the government voice on the NISPAC. The 8 industry members are selected based on their involvement with classified information as well. But important to note that industry members don't represent their companies, they're representing industry as a whole. And those 8 members have a very large network back out into cleared industry. There are about 13,000 cleared companies across the executive branch. And amazingly, those 8 can spread into the networks to get to the smallest companies that handle classified information and the very largest companies that handle classified information, and they share information really well. And it's an amazing thing for me to see how they network and share and bring an industry viewpoint to the NISPAC. Because industry sits on the NISPAC, it is subject to the Federal Advisory Committee Act. The meeting notices are in the Federal Register. We're required to meet at least twice a year by executive order, but we actually meet 3 times a year, and I think our meetings are pretty packed with information. 2 meetings a year wasn't enough. We had to go to a 3rd meeting. And we also establish sub-working groups as needed. And so the 4 that are listed there are the current really active working groups. So the working groups meet behind the scenes, also comprised of government and industry, but those who have a special interest in that particular area. So you can imagine personnel security, backlogs, new National Investigations Bureau. The NISPAC members are very interested, working behind the scenes, assessment and authorization. It's kind of a big deal to industry right now that we're implementing a risk management framework for system authorizations. So it's a way for government and industry to come together to talk about what that means for industry. Insider threat. I always think when I hear things on WTOP that it's for real, and I've been hearing implementation of insider threat for industry a lot on WTOP lately. So WTOP might be on top of it, but we are too. We have a working group to bring together the CSAs and industry so that industry understands how government is overseeing industry programs, and industry then can talk about lessons learned, the things that they're experiencing. We also have a NISPOM rewrite working group because DoD is in the process of rewriting the NISPOM. That working group, very active and a very large group, and helping to set the future of the NISPOM for industry. I think that That pretty much covers the NISPAC. The next meeting is next Thursday. It's a public meeting. Any of you are welcome to come. We just like to know ahead of time so we know who to expect and how many to expect. So if you're interested in coming, just contact one of the ISOO staff, and we're happy to make it happen for you. And before this meeting, I wanted to just make sure that if I Googled Federal Register and NISPAC, the next meeting actually came up, and it did. So that also can tell you how to get registered for the next meeting so that we know you're coming. I feel like I want to say, okay, questions now, and we're not doing questions, so I'm pausing, thinking I'm going to get questions from you. We'll go on. So a little bit more about the 32 CFR 2004. It's important to all of you government agencies because it sets out your requirements under the NISP. The executive order was issued in 1992. We actually didn't have this NISP directive until 2006. So you can see that we went for a long time without the guidance to the government. The government was depending on that NISPOM to give them clues about what the government was supposed to do. So finally in 2006, the ISOO issued the first 32 CFR 2004, updated again in 2010 to incorporate guidance on something called national interest determinations. And if you have companies that are under foreign ownership, control, or influence, you're probably familiar with that NID process, but it's a bit of an esoteric process within the NISP. But it is covered in 32 CFR because at the time there was a problem with timelines in getting NIDs issued. So what I want now to go into is, okay, given all that background about the 32 CFR and what's new, we are actually in the process of revising that 32 CFR 2004. From 2010 till now, a lot of things have happened in the government, and we're trying to take those into account and put them into our guidance for the NISP. So working with the CSAs over the past about a year, we have been working on this revision. And in fact, we started talking about insider threat revisions to the implementing directive shortly after the executive order 13587 came out, that I lovingly call the insider threat executive order. You'll know it as structural reforms to improve the security of networks and responsible sharing and safeguarding of classified information. Industry has responsibility to establish insider threat programs. We as the government have the responsibility to make sure they have established programs and that those programs are working the way they should be. So those requirements now for the government are being incorporated into the NISP directive. It recognizes DHS as a CSA. Executive Order 13691, promoting private sector cybersecurity information sharing, actually amended the NISP executive order to say that DHS was a cognizant security agency, and they're focusing right now specifically on programs that have to do with sharing threat information with their cybersecurity critical infrastructure partners. The revision recognizes the DNI as a CSA. They actually took on the role of a CSA after the Intelligence Reform and Terrorist Prevention Act came out back in 2003, I think it was. But now we're finally formally acknowledging them. And I'll tell you one of the things that really brought about this revision. We've been working with DoD on revising the NISPOM, and we've been sitting, government and industry, together in workshops over the past couple of years. And we're talking about words that tell industry what the government is going to do. So the NISPOM is packed with places that tell industry the CSA is going to do this thing for you. The CSA is going to give you something. Your government contracting activity is going to do a certain thing for you, industry. But guess what? There was no set of national policy anywhere that actually told the CSAs and those government contracting agencies that they were supposed to do that, other than it was alluded to in the NISPOM. So that is what truly finally drove the fact that we needed to fundamentally change the 32 CFR 2004, the NISP directive. Those were fun discussions that we had, so now we actually have a draft. What's the status of that draft? We informally coordinated it with all of your agencies, those who are the industrial security points of contact for your agencies. Then we sent it to OMB. OMB did a formal interagency coordination. Agencies have sent comments back. And so right now, OMB is in the process of clearing those comments. And we expect that within the next several weeks, we truly expect that it's going to be issued as a proposed rule, and there'll be a request for public comment. So that is what is new in the NISP. I find it very exciting. And for those of you who work on the NISP, I hope you do too. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ellen.
Thank you, Kathy. We're going to open up the floor for questions or comments. We have microphones on either side. If anyone has any comments or questions for Bob, Bill, or Kathy, you can step forward now. Also, they will be available, as will all ISOO staff, during the networking break for any questions you might want to bring to them directly. So is there anything from the audience? No? Okay, just a couple of, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you swing down and grab a mic, please? While we're waiting for the quick question, just some housekeeping. When we come back from the networking break at 10:55, our next briefing will be about CY, which I know a lot of you are interested in. And also, I've been told to tell everyone that you're not allowed to bring food or drink back in with you into the McGowan when we get here. Let's turn it over for our first question. Yes.
Good morning. This question is for Ms. Branch. Does the NISP directive effectively replace the need for the industrial security regulation that hasn't been updated in eons?
I love that question. Thank you. So here's what the NISP directive is going to do. The 1985 regulation that you reference, that is DOD's regulation to implement the NISP within DOD, and it also applies for all of those agencies that have agreements with DOD, but it doesn't cover the DNI, it doesn't cover DOE, NRC, DHS, but it was DOD's attempt, and if you think about the date, 1985, that actually predates the NISP. So that policy has been in place to guide DOD in implementing their program. The NISP directive now is going to be a higher level, overarching set of policies that will actually drive changes to that 1985 reg. So DOD is in the process of revising it now, and it probably will be out, and then further revisions as the 32 CFR 2004 comes out. But yeah, the 1985 reg isn't directly impacted, but ultimately it will be.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and take the networking break, and we'll be back, everyone, if we could be seated at 10:55. Thank you.